All right, we're going to get started here. All right, welcome to what's up? It's Leeds. Welcome to the Leeds Edutainment Podcast. I'm with two. Today was a very special episode. We've got two close friends, fellow creatives, Blak Madeen in the building, Al J and Youssef, rhyme duo. OGs in the game. We go way back, and I'm thinking, because I know so much about you guys, this is gonna be more like a conversation than an interview, because I'm not gonna, because of the decades of working together and whatnot. But I'm thinking, Seth, me and you met like what 20 years ago with Kane. You were rapping with Kane.
Yeah, that was probably in Methuen. It was 20 years, give or take a few years, but yeah.
Yeah, because I remember being up in Kane's attic up in Methuen, and in Methuen, his mom's attic, and putting together mixtapes, and then you'd come by and spit rhymes, and I think you were doing the Invisible Men project at the time, but with Eveready, shout out DJ Eveready. Those are fun times, and
that was a cold bait. That was a cold attic.
Yeah.
Freezing.
Recording in the attic.
Yeah.
Okay, Major.
Yes.
Al, we met, I think, when I first started doing shows. I remember Jake the Snake, or JDS, introduced us.
Yes, sir.
And you opened up on a Slane show that we did. The first show I ever did with Slane at All Asia, actually. You were Algebra at the time.
Yeah. I opened up for you like in 2004. It was a You God show. A show with You God. I think it was somewhere by
Chopping Block.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shout out to the Chopping Block. Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Chopping Block in Mission Hill.
Yes, sir.
I brought that up with Reef the Lost Cause, actually, because one of his first shows with me was at the Chopping Block with Chief Camachi.
Oh,
I told him about that. I told him about that You God show, and it was funny. But that was a total dive bar with just a straight PA system, and yeah, that's how we met.
Definitely.
And we've been working together for the love of hip hop since then.
Definitely.
So for those who don't know, what Blak Madeen, what does that even mean? What's the origin of that, and what is that? What's the definition of that?
Well, coming from my perspective, the guys in the earths, they call Boston Blak Medina. So that's that's definitely an AKA for the city of Boston. So I'm like, hey, we represent the city of Boston. We are Boston. So, me and Seth was a group. We called ourselves, I came up with the name Duo of the Iron Mike. It was a little too long or whatever. So, did a track with you, Lord Jamar.
Yes.
Lord Jamar on my team in the Bean Screen Blak Madeen. Shout out to Peter Parker. He was like, wait a minute, that's a cool name for Al J and Youssef, Blak Madeen. I'm like, word. Oh shoot, nice. So Seth was down with the whole idea too, and we rolled with it ever since.
Yeah, and I remember that Lord Jamar verse. Shout out Nino Card, DJ Nino Carter. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Nino Carter.
He set that up, and this is before like you would get your verse emailed to you. I mean, email existed, but they literally mailed the CD, the session, to my house, and then we had to go upload that to get the verse. It wasn't just like nowadays you can just email your verse. It was a big session. We got it, and that was crazy, and the verse was crazy, and the track came out crazy, and that was kind of the birth of that, and that's the birth of Blak Madeen.
What Jamar.
Yep,
absolutely.
I remember you were living in Hyde Park at the time,
Yeah.
And we were just kind of putting things together, and you randomly said, "Who would you like to work with?" Lord J is the first dude I thought of, but I'm just thinking we were just conversation, you know.
Right.
The next day you call me and you're like, "Yeah, I think we got the Lord Jamar feature in motion." And that was it. But it was those events like that got you hyped, you know what I mean? And that's what hooked you on hip hop. Like, oh snap! Like I'm doing a show with you, God, or doing a feature with Lord J, and you know what I mean? All these years later.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, you guys kind of came together for the love of classic hip hop. Blak Madeen is a conscious rap group. It's based in, you know, Seth, you are Muslim, Islamic. And Al, you touch upon what would you describe your spiritual background?
I'm pretty much just for the lack of a better phrase, metaphysical.
Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
And you guys came together between spirituality, religion, and just the love of hip hop, and coming out of that, you know, 5% era of New York hip hop, which was the Gods and the Earths and Brand Nubian, Gangstar, Wu-Tang. Give me some other names.
Poor Righteous Teachers.
Poor Righteous Teachers.
Leaders of the New School. A Tribe Called Quest.
Rakim.
Technically, yeah, Rakim.
Right.
Technically, that was pretty much the unofficial religion of hip hop, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. I think it's still, and I think it still is.
5% or just Islam in general?
Islam in general, because I mean now it's universal. So now you got kids in the Middle East and kids in Europe who you know, but I you know, in general, I still think it is, and I think you're seeing the rebirth of it too. You know, not to get off subject, but you know, I look on the current playlists of the current boom bap, you know, stuff that's in our lane, and just looking at the names, you can see that it's kind of coming back to prominence. I don't think it ever left, but I think now, you know, the game is changing where, you know, the true artists are remaining, and you're still seeing, you know, Muslim artists or 5% artists doing their thing. You know, it's a positive thing.
Yeah. And Steph, I want to talk about your background a little bit because I find it very interesting. You know, growing up in the 978 area, for those who don't know, 978 is Essex County, northern Massachusetts, Merrimack Valley. And you grew up in a Catholic, you know, going to Catholic school, Irish Catholic, and converted to Islam, I'd say probably 2000, 99, around that time?
Yeah, we're at the 20-year mark. Yep, early 2000s.
So what's that like, actually? Because, you know, you grow up one way, being taught one way. What made you want to convert from that way to Islam, from being Catholic to Islam?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I tell people all the time, because to this day, even at this age, I'm still constantly, even, you know, I meet somebody at the mosque that I've never seen before, and they always, when they realize that I'm white, they immediately want to know, you know, my journey. But I honestly say, like, it was my Catholic background that was kind of my introduction to Islam, because in Islam we share the same prophets. We love Prophet Jesus. We love Abraham, Moses. So when I started looking into Islam, it wasn't like it was something foreign. What it was is just kind of it was the same God. It was the same prophets. It was just, you know, now, obviously, you know, the major difference is we don't believe Jesus as a God or as son of God. We believe him as a prophet of God. And then obviously the main difference is we believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, is the final messenger. But to answer your question, I think I always had an interest, probably because of my Catholic background. I had an interest in spirituality and religion, in, you know, scripture. I just, you know, I never really understood the concept of the Trinity. and I, kept asking questions. And then finally, when I looked into Islam, those questions were answered for me. So, and again, it's, it's not like it happens overnight. People think I'm going to have one, they ask me what happened, how did you become Muslim? It's not going to be like, well, one day. No, it's a gradual thing, constant studying and just kind of, waking up, and it's nonstop to this day. I'm still learning things, and I'm still dealing with a lot of the, because you talk about Islam in this country, you deal with all kinds of questions and misconceptions. So it's nonstop, but when you believe, it's all worth it.
Right on. Yeah, and you were young when you picked it up. I mean, it wasn't like you didn't, the discipline you had at such an early age. Most people don't find that discipline that young. A lot of people convert later on in life, or maybe when something happens, or, a negative situation that makes them get closer to God. That wasn't your story. You were young, early 20s, not drinking, not smoking. I mean, that in the hip hop business, in the rap world, that was that took incredible strength and discipline.
I mean, people ask, and again, this is a common question and a natural question. Were you nervous the first time you went into a mosque? And the honest answer is yeah, a little bit. However, I was more nervous not to go into the mosque and take my shahada, become a Muslim, because I had already studied. I was already convinced of its truth. So, like, there was something inside me saying it's time. You know what I mean? It's time to, go in there, take your shahada, because this is the truth. I can't hide from it. So yeah, I was a little nervous because obviously you're an outsider and you're dealing with a new group of people. But I was more scared not to go in and not to get, to start my, to take my shahada and become a Muslim. And yeah, as far as the discipline, that's a personal thing. Everybody's different. I just knew Islam wasn't something I was gonna play with. I was serious about it, and I wasn't gonna play with. And it's funny, my grandfather, may he rest in peace, was a staunch Irish Catholic. And when I first became Muslim, people in my family are like, oh, well, when your grandfather finds out, he's going to be upset. And it wasn't like that. He actually asked my father, well, does he pray? Does he go to the mosque and do the things that he's supposed to do? And my father said, yeah. And then my grandfather was cool with it. Because he knew if you're serious about it, as opposed to just, lip service or whatever. But, again, it's not, it's ever, it's constantly, nobody's perfect. We're all working at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then, moving forward, you guys now come together as a group. We start working together. We put out early, let's say now we're working together probably like 2005. And we put together, all three of us. I started executive producing for you guys, and we put out like 3 or 4 projects on our own over the next, in an era where it was very tough to get your music out there because of the streaming isn't out yet. We got to give away everything for free just to get people to listen to it. Very tough era, but we were lucky to work with a lot of the OG artists and the legends that we just talked about, representing 5% in New York and all that. I mean, let's talk about that experience. Al, I want you to know your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts on the projects we did and the people we worked with? And let's name a few and just go over it a little bit, because it's pretty wild that we talk about it.
Speaking of wild, I was thinking about Just Ice the other day.
Yeah. That's a funny story. Why'd you tell that one?
Oh yeah, that's a Charlie Murphy story.
That's a good one.
Yo, man, was in the studio, recording the joint, rhyming with Al J, or with Just Ice or whatever. And you know, he's like, yo, let's go to the gym. He had like a big fifth of, I don't know, was Ian, no, I think it was some Hennessy. Like, let's go to the gym. Like,
it was like Jamaican. It was like this Jamaican custom drink. It wasn't your normal. It wasn't like didn't buy that at the liquor store.
Right.
Like, and he was chugging it.
Right. Then he's all like, "Yo, what's up, yo? What'd you say, yo? What's up? What the hell was that? Yo, man,
No, he picked it up.
Talk to you about your lyrics."
Yeah, I'll recap this because we're in the studio. We're supposed to do this feature with Just Ice for Al's actually solo project, and Just Ice is in there. He's like 6'2", about 275 pounds, barrel-chested muscle.
Diesel.
He's got this Jamaican concoction in a bottle, and he smoking a blunt and drinking it, and then all of a sudden finishes it, and is like, "Let's go to the gym." We got to finish the verse.
Just like you know what I mean, driving him around. I mean, it was crazy, man. I mean, him.
But the funny thing the funny thing about it is so you're spitting your we had recorded your verse. We wanted him just to do the chorus, and you had a line in there where you said, "Gods and earths are the stepping stones." I forget the final line.
I beat streets like records with metronomes. Not a savage nor your average Joe Neckbone. More like Joe Cooler. All right, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and he got all offended because he thought that you were calling the gods and the earth stepping stones.
Right. Well, to clarify, what I was actually, I could have termed it a little better in hindsight, like when I think about it, but at the time, I was, when I write, you know what I mean, or even back then, I was like, okay, you know what I mean, this rhymes, stepping stones, metronomes, but I didn't look at the whole stepping stone like I'm stepping upon us, you know what I mean? It was more like, you know what I mean? Like, I got what I got, now I got to add on, you know what I mean? I graduated from the whole, you know what I mean, the math that was given. Now, you know what I mean, I got to come up with my own understanding and my own perspective or my own input. So, you know, with that being said, you know what I mean, I got this, I got the lessons, cool. Now I'm going to build, I'm going to add on and come with my own understanding. That's what I was more like, you know what I mean, just to clarify things. But I could have worded it a little bit better in hindsight, but, you know, like that was like what they say, a little like teachable moment. So
yeah, and you were really,
I mean,
you were really cool.
You know what I mean? And then, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, this is Just Dice, you know what I mean? He's down with Chris, you know what I mean? BDP. I'm like, you know, that's a big bro right there. I'm like, all right, yeah, you know. But it was crazy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wasn't there a problem with his sound at the show that night, and he ended up like doing an a cappella skit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. Well, just to recap the studio session, when we finished the song, finally, as we're leaving, he's like, he goes, "Al, we're gonna go talk about your lyrics." As we're walking out. And that was it. You're like a conscious dude, man, too. So it wasn't like, you know, he was with no BS, but then we do the show at night, right? And he doesn't sound check, he doesn't do anything. He brings his stuff on a CD, and the CD's not working. And he does LaToya a cappella. I forget the other song he does, probably back to the old school a cappella or whatever it was, and then does LaToya again a cappella, and then says, "My CD doesn't work, blame the promoter, I'm out of here." And that was the show. Shout out Just Ice. Shout out to Western Front, because that was at the Western Front.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Great venue.
You know, Just Ice, Core Mega.
Oh, the other big one, yeah. That was a great collab.
Oh yeah, definitely. Shout out to Core Mega, Queensbridge. Tragedy Khadafi. Shout out to Queensbridge again. You know what I mean?
And Hellraiser.
Oh, Hellraiser, yes. That was a good night.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, that was, out of all studio sessions, that was the coolest, because Shabazz the Disciple was with him. and we got to really just chop it up with both of them. In a great show earlier too. Hellraiser had just released the I think it was the Razor's Ladder album. I think that's what he was promoting at that time. And I that still gets regular burn, that album. Like I'm a huge Hellraiser dude. But yeah, that was a great collab. That was a great moment, you know. All these early moments are like what hooks you to hip hop.
Right.
You know, I'm like, you can't get these anywhere else. Like, there's no other experience that's this fun, especially when you're as passionate about it, like LJ and I are, and you are. You know, like, you don't take these things for granted. It's like, yo, this is two legendary dudes just kind of chilling in Leeds' apartment right now. You know what I mean? Like, it was.
Yeah.
But again, it's moments like that you don't forget. If you're a real hip hop head, like, you don't forget those. You know. But
yeah, we recorded. Yeah, we recorded that in my apartment, in my closet, and after the show, and they were mad cool, man. They were all, both of those guys were cool, and that was a great feature. And then, you know, obviously we did those couple projects, and then we did the album with Tragedy Khadafi, where he's on every song. The 7-track, we called it an EP, but it was technically, in today's standards, it's a 7-track album. Yeah. Militant Minds, Blak Madeen, Tragedy Khadafi, whole album. And I want to talk about him because, you know, he is, in your guys' opinion and mine, one of the greatest.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, easy.
Al, I want to talk to you about, Al, I want your opinion on it, because I know you've been a diehard since Intelligent Hoodlum. I mean, what's your thoughts on Traj being the GOAT?
In my opinion, he's the father. He's the father of CNN, Nas. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you got, like, remember, he was in the Juice Crew at a young age, like 16.
Yeah, crazy.
And even before that, he was with a group called the Super Kids. Like, this goes back to like 85. Him and DJ Hot Day. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then we would think of Nas, QB. In my opinion, you know, Traj was early Nas even before Nas. Because when I hear the similarities, well, back then he kept it a little simplistic, but like if you hear Traj now, I'm like, yo, he's the father, yo. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I mean, it is what it is. And for us to do like a project, I mean, that was a dream come true, man. I'm like, word, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he knows about Blak Madeen, myself, Yusef. Yo, we solid, you know what I'm saying?
And that was cool. Like we were in the lab with him, like sitting there watching him write, watching him spit his stuff back to him, you know, just watching him go through his process, just seeing it. Yeah, it's like watching, you know, Michael Jordan practice or something like that. It's like, or Tyson in the gym or something. It's like watching, like, you know, somebody who's like great at their craft. So that was cool. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you know, just, you know, email me the, you know, the session or whatever, PayPal the feature. It wasn't like that. It was in the, you know, it was, you know, we did a show with him. We did a video. We had a few studio sessions, and just watching how nasty he is. And just, you know, just got away with words, you know, like even like sometimes he might even like not repeat himself, but touch upon a subject that he's talked about a million times, and it still sounds fresh when you hear the new verse, because he finds some, you know, like he's an MC. So yeah, that was a great project, and that helps, I think, you know, even if you check our Spotify and stuff, that's still one of our most listened to projects. So that had, you know, shout out to you for kind of putting that together.
So Traj is always cool, man. You know, we came through. He did the show. We did the song. We did the first song originally, "Militant Minds," the first one that the title cut. We just recorded that as a feature, thinking just a feature, and then it was like he was eager to work, and and he saw what you guys were doing, and he kind of kept the lyrics strong and didn't half half-ass it at all. I mean,
Oh no.
he gave 110% on all those verses. It was
Oh yeah,
not
he
like,
did. He
oh,
came
whatever,
through.
this is a feature, I don't care, I'm just getting paid. There wasn't
Oh
any of
no,
that. He was
he
like,
came
yo, I'm
through.
gonna take this serious.
Yeah, he
came
understood.
through.
Yeah, there's some people who don't get it. You know, it's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, he understood immediately. And his stepfather's actually, Shia Muslim like I am, and he had mentioned that in during the conversations. And then about a month or two after we released the project, his stepfather reached out to me on Facebook. Like small world, because they live up in Rhode Island. I think Trag at that time was driving from Rhode Island to Boston, for the sessions. So that was a cool, that whole, and we can go back, the production on that was crazy. The cuts, like musically and lyrically, like, that's a strong project. I'm glad we got that one.
And the production was, I think it was like Teddy Ruxpin, Skin Said, and I mean, Rob Whitaker did the remix. Was there one more I'm forgetting? Or was that just
Maestro did the posse cut with Reef and Blackistan, which somehow wound up on the Snow Goons YouTube channel. So that's got crazy views. But yeah, I mean, and Blackistan and Reef, they love Trag the way we do. So they brought their A game. Yeah, that's a great project.
Yeah.
But I funny, when I interviewed Reef, I brought up the time that he accidentally thought Hatim was Tragedy Khadafi. It was bigging him up.
Hatim went along with it.
Yeah, Hatim just kind of went with it, and like, he was dying. He was dying laughing. So
no, we did some good show.
We always did features. Blak Madeen features was always based on the love for the artist. We didn't do it for this person's got so many, is famous, or this person's what. It's like we picked features that fit musically, aesthetically, and we didn't chase anything else. It was for the love, 100%. You know what I mean? And that's why those features always sounded so good and made sense. And I think they worked. And no one ever really kind of looked at it as just like, oh, this so-and-so is just mailing it in, or this is a clout chase, because there wasn't any of that,
Yeah.
No.
And we've been fortunate, and because I think most of the time, but again, you gotta like A&R your own projects.
Right.
So, you when you get a feature, you make sure that you're getting the production that artist's gonna sound good on. You know subject matter. And again, if they're talented dudes, they are, that they'll be able to knock it out. But that's always been one of our strong suits. Again, you worded it perfectly. It's because we love music. We love Tragedy Khadafi. We love Hellraiser. We're not just chasing, a name. If we were gonna chase a name, would go after one of these young dudes who wouldn't fit. So
right.
Yeah. So time goes by, things change and whatnot, and situations change. And then you guys, a couple projects later, link up somehow. I mean, there's a method to this. Eventually, it leads you guys to working with Chuck D, imprint label, Spitslam.
Right.
And you've put out, now, is this now the second project, the third? How many projects have you done with them?
This will be the second.
Let the Good Get Even is a second project.
Okay, so I want to talk about how you got signed to this label and working with Chuck D and this whole thing. Let's talk about that whole process and how that happened.
Seth?
Yeah. Basically, it started, I guess it was 2016. There was a movement called the Hip Hop for Justice movement, which was started by a brother in the Nation of Islam from San Francisco named Miles Muhammad. Shout out to him. You might see the Hip Hop for Justice on Instagram. It's basically there was a police shooting in San Francisco of a person named Mario Woods who was shot down by the police, and that kind of started the Hip Hop for Justice movement. And basically one thing led to another. They reached out to us to hop on a track for a compilation they were putting together. Obviously, you know, we got great respect for the NOI, so we said, of course, yes. And we got matched up to be on a track with a group called the Impossibles from Ohio, well, Pittsburgh and Ohio. One of them is C-Doc, who is really the in-house producer now for PE and Chuck D and the Spit Slam label. He also does their videos. So, you know, we got to kind of, you know, hop on the phone with him and work with him, bang out the track. Obviously, we were impressed by we're blown away by his resume, because he's been working with PE now for about 20 years. But not only did we like his, you know, his music and his resume, but he's an easy guy to work with. And as you know, finding all those qualities in one person in hip hop is very rare. Somebody who's not only talented, but cool to work with. So we just stayed in touch. He did a couple of remixes for us, did a couple of beats for other projects. And then one thing led to another. And we were working on a bunch of tracks, like, yo, let's just do an EP together. And then that EP ended up becoming an LP, which was Dangerous Art Form. We figured we'd just put it out ourselves. And C-Doc's like, well, let me talk to Chuck, see if we can work something out. And one thing led to another. It was, you know, that was going to be like a one album situation. And I guess Chuck D dug us enough. He asked C-Doc, he's like, you guys just want to just make these guys regular members of the roster? And well, obviously you didn't have to ask us twice. And we signed. I mean, because you talk about our lane of hip hop, conscious hip hop, political, whatever label you want to put on it, Chuck's at the top, you know. So you know, and it's a good you know, and again, you know, C-Doc has, you know, he's crazy producer, great mind. He produced the entirety of our last two albums, which is a cool thing. Working with one producer on a project is pretty cool, you know, because we grew up with, you know, Premier doing all the Gangstar projects and Mugs and everything. So that's what led to that, and it's been cool, you know. LJ and I were doing one of these Zoom meetings with Chuck on Saturday, you know, walking around my parents' backyard having a discussion with Chuck D on Saturday. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
So Al, like, what do you think? Like, being a diehard Public Enemy fan, and I know you are, to being working with and even doing a song with Chuck. I mean, what's that like?
It's all a dream, brother. That's all I can say. I'm just like, honestly, I'm taking it in like slow. It's like I still can't believe it, though it's real. I mean, you know, I tell my mom this, and she's like all excited because she's a PE fan. You know what I'm saying? So she's telling everyone at her job, and they're like, for real? For real? And, you know, word get around, you know, our music and everything, everybody knows. So it's like, wow, I'm working with, like, Chuck D is executively producing our project, like his name on it, like his logo, his label. I'm like, I'm taking it all in still, but I'm just like, wow, it's amazing, man. You know, we're very, 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 you know what I mean? It's like Blak Madeen. I mean, we do our thing, like, you know what I'm saying? But for him to really get behind us, it's like, wow, like that's amazing, man.
And you guys were featured on their album too, their last one.
Yeah,
Radio, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
What'd you say, Seth? You say something?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, we get you.
That's what I was gonna bring up. Like before we were featured on our project, we were featured on the Enemy Radio album, which came out, you know, earlier in 2020, and he put out our first vinyl appearance. We're on a Chuck D solo track with Daddy O from Stetsasonics also on here too. So that's like a vinyl appearance, which is, you know what I mean? And we actually have a couple other joints kind of in the crates now. I don't know what he's planning on doing with them. I don't know if they're going to be on future PE albums or solo, but there's like 2 other joints that nobody's heard yet. And of course, he's on the new, you know, our new album. So it's cool. And again, you know, Chuck is a dude, like, obviously he's a legend. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But his
cultural icon.
His love of hip hop, though, is still so strong. Like he knows, he's familiar with these underground artists because he's got, you know, Rap Station and stuff. I'm blown away by how passionate about the music he still is. And he's 60 now. And, you know, he's got an insight into the way the game is now in this new digital era. And you know, we get a chance to chop it up with him on Zoom on the regular now. Yeah. And he's always got a good insight into what independent artists should be doing. And hearing it from him, though, it's reassuring. You know what I mean? Because you know, as you know, we're in a weird era right now where artists aren't sure what they're supposed to be doing. You know, but he's always got, you know, good insight. His feet are, you know, firmly planted, and you know, it's a good situation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And to add on, he also sees the work ethic of Blak Madeen. How you know what I'm saying? How we put it down. You know, professionalism, everything, the whole 9. So,
yeah, I mean, you guys, we worked well together because all 3 of us were just steadfast workers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We loved hip hop. This is what we did. We didn't make any giant jumps, but we were steady Eddies the whole time. And that steady Eddie added work ethic, and you guys is constantly releasing projects and music got you to this point with Public Enemy, or Chuck D, I should say. And that's really what it is just that consistency and that steadfast love for hip hop and putting out projects. This is the reward. You know what I mean?
Well,
this is what you get.
Right. Well, we definitely got to give credit to Leeds Edutainment, man. We definitely have to do that, because we wouldn't even got to Chuck if it wasn't for Leeds Edutainment. All right, don't get it twisted.
Get it fixed.
Right.
Quick question, though. I got to get your opinion. Go ahead.
Chuck called us vets the other day on the phone. You know, vets, like Chuck D calling us vets, which, you know, made me think, wow, we've been at this. But it's one thing when like a kid at the Middle East says it, but it's another thing when Chuck D says it. And it was like, wow. It's like, and he's right, you know, time's passing and we're still at it though. But, you know, just like you said, it's because we love it. It's no other reason.
Right.
And like our era, man, we're all pretty much around the same age. Just birthed the diehard generation, man. Like our generation is we just went in. We didn't stop.
Yeah, we still going in, B.
If we didn't make a ton of money, we didn't blow up, but man, like we stayed. We stayed making music, and we did it for the love, and we still do that, you know. And I hope to be 60 years old like Chuck D, thinking the same way, man. I mean, I think that we all want that, right? Like,
oh yeah, well, that's what it is for me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what y'all gonna do, but you know what I mean. My mind's already made up.
Right, exactly.
But it's all good.
And that's why the Spit Slam situation works so well with us, because the other dudes on the label are all pretty much in that lane. Like Daddy-O from Stetson Sonic, he's 60. He just put out 2 of the best albums I've heard in years. His last 2 albums, classic. Yeah, he's just going through a creative burst. And C-Doc, you know, our main producer, he's same thing. He's in grew up, you know, he's a little bit older than us, but same type of thing, just diehard hip hop. And you can text him something crazy at like 1:00 in the morning about, hey, remember this DJ Muggs remix? And he'll hit you back and be like, yeah, you know, like just, you know what I mean? Just a hip hop fan. Yep. And it's like a fellowship, you know what I mean? It's like we all relate to each other. We might be from different backgrounds or different places, but that diehard hip hop head, you know, we can all relate to each other one way or another. So, you know.
Yeah. I know for myself when I saw you guys on Public Enemy, like I was like I felt proud because I grew up loving Public Enemy, and you guys were now working with them. And shout out Peter Parker, it was the same thing. I remember when he found out, he called me. He was like, "Yo," because we idolized Public Enemy, and you guys are now signed to Chuck's imprint, and it's like, man, it's like a part of us made it. You know what I mean? Like part of me made it, part of Parker made it, and it was like, and you know, I know there's others that feel that way. And I guess my question is, what's your favorite Public Enemy album?
Oh no, that's all good. Well, mine's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Like, I remember that album, top to bottom. I remember the times I heard Rebel Without a Pause. I knew where I was at. I knew what street I was on, where I was walking to. You know what I'm saying? I remember Flavor Flav. Hey, yo, Chuck, man. I'm like, all right. I'm like, it was wild. And then you hear, and it was irritating, like, yo. But it was like, it sounded dope. Like, I'm like, all right. And then, you hear Chuck. I'm like, all right. Oh, word. Damn. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, the rhyme animal.
What about you, Seth? Favorite Public Enemy album?
Same. Takes a Nation. Again, there's so many. I mean, I might have more personal memories from a little bit later when I was a little bit older. Like, I remember when Music and Our Message came out, like, because I was a little bit older, and I was more older and to appreciate. Like, I remember, like, Give It Up is my favorite PE song. But in terms of, just looking back and listening to them, all the albums one by one, Takes the Nation's probably. I mean, Chuck's got just so many classic lines on that album, which will pop into your head all the time on a daily basis, like, Father, we're a Farrakhan. Don't tell me that you understand. Like that, lines like that pop in your head, my head, for me, like all the time. Like somebody says something and a Chuck D line registers in my head. But again, what's crazy is they've got so many albums to pick from. And their most recent album that they dropped last summer's a banger. With the joint with George Clinton, what you gonna do when the sun goes down? Like
Cypress Hill.
Yeah, the track with Ice-T, so he's never stopped creating. And in addition to being on his label, what's cool now is Al J and Griff are on the phone all the, you know what I mean? Like
that's Serious Minds.
Yeah, and Griff came to Boston to do a show from when we did the benefit for the people of Yemen, and we got to kind of chop it up in person because Griff's always playing our joints on his podcast, on his platform, which is another legend, who paved the way for a lot of truth telling in hip hop. And
I definitely Bring the Noise is definitely my favorite Public Enemy song. And Takes a Nation was like the first actual CD I bought. I had tapes beforehand, but that was like the first CD I had, and I played it nonstop. And
right.
Definitely one of my favorite. But Apocalypse 91, it was like the first Public Enemy album I heard because I got into hip hop later, like around 91, 92. And the Bring the Noise remix with Anthrax, that was kind of I was listening to rock. And Shut Them Down. And by the time I get to Arizona and the intro, to me, the intro on that album, Lost at Birth, is their best intro.
Definitely.
But to me, that album is, and then Fear of Black Planet is kind of like the best, but it's like personal connections that you have.
It's neck and neck, in my opinion, with It Takes a Nation. You know what I mean? Bum Rush the Show was even good. You know what I'm saying?
I listened to that the other day, actually.
You did? Bum Rush the Show was dope.
Yeah. That's like super 80s old school hip hop sound at that time.
Oh yeah, that's that's Cold 87, yo. Yeah. Cold 87.
Very Melly Mel influenced.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which I am mad at. But the funny thing about the funny thing,
greatest, man. He's the greatest.
What we talk about Public Enemy's consistency is like so many people just thought that they stopped at 95 when after Music and Our Message, but
not
94.
even.
But that's the thing. There's another 15 years of albums,
dude, like
that were underground.
Still, I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, they would have still been touring. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but in terms of those, like the post Def Jam albums, there's a Poison going on. I remember buying that the day it came out. That's a great album.
Dope.
Like, that's a great album. And they have a joint, what's it called? Harder Than You Think. Crazy, and then that was within the last 10 years. So again, like and a lot of this stuff post Def Jam a lot of it was, C-Dog production. So being able to being able to work with that dude who made these joints is cool. But yeah, man, and Chuck's never ran out of things to say. And that's what that's what makes him a great MC. Like he just put out a joint about all the great baseball players who died last year, and they're playing it on a Major League Baseball network. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably getting as many views as any other thing he's done recently, but it's because he thought of the idea. He had the idea. My favorite baseball players are dying. Let's do a song about it. But that's what makes a great writer. And just being able to kind of look at him and get inspired by him. It's definitely.
Yeah. And like I said, the steadfast consistency of them, you guys share that bond. You guys are the same ballpark as work ethic wise and putting music out. And I'm glad that you're in this place now. Create good creative space and team behind you that you can continue this legacy that we started 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago now. It's working well. I guess I like to wrap it up with, where do you think conscious rap stands today in the midst of all this trap and all this stuff? I mean, how do you feel about being a conscious rapper in this era?
I mean, to keep it real with you, man, like anyone that would say we're conscious or call me or Yusef conscious rappers, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nah, like it's hip hop. It's straight hip hop. That's it. It's hip hop. Like you put a conscious rapper or a conscious group. It's like you set up a death trap for them. You know what I mean? Like they can't go outside of their box. You know what I mean? You're like limiting them to what they can do. And it's like, nah, the nerve of y'all. No, I'm hip hop. Hip hop. That's it. Blak Madeen, hip hop. LJ, hip hop. Yusef, hip hop. Leeds Edutainment, hip hop. That's it.
Fair enough.
They asked Divine Style that question. That's my all-time favorite MC, by the way. Divine, you talk about some of our features. That was a great feature. But they asked him about that label, and he goes, "Well, what's the opposite of conscious? If you're not conscious, you're unconscious. So what would you prefer?" But again, like in this kind of talk about some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, I'm looking at some of the playlists now in terms of our lane, and I think I'm seeing it come back. I'm not, just again in terms of how many views or how many streams it gets, who knows? But again, everybody's dealing with that in terms of Chuck reminding us the other day, there's 60,000 new songs get uploaded to Spotify a day.
Yeah.
And I Googled it afterwards, and he was right. Like his number, 60,000. So that being said, what he was telling us was, you might as well put your best music out, put out what you want to put out. Don't be worried about, well, if I do this, people might not like it. 60,000. There's 60,000 songs a day that you need to compete with. You might as well get creative, put out what you want. Don't be like, well, this is too conscious. Let me dumb it down. No, like if you got something, if you got a message that's strong, put it out there. And again, I think that steadfastness in the beginning, you talk about, it might have been like, oh, this is kind of moving kind of slow. But in actuality, I think we were just setting a good pace for ourselves. And now you come into this era and everybody's kind of got to adapt. And I think we're already kind of there because we got the background, we got the back catalog, and now we just got to move forward. And, we got a good situation to do that.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, sir. And Seth said catalog. That's what it's all about. The catalog. You know what I'm saying? That's what's like, this is what inspires me. This is the hunger that, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, word, getting the catalog, because that's what's going to matter. That's what's going to stand out. That's what's going to surpass us even being here is our work. So I'm all about that catalog.
And like Chuck, like to quote Chuck again, there's no such thing as old music anymore. If somebody hasn't heard it, it's new to him. And like the whole thing about release dates and everything, that's all passe, because that only mattered because that was record stores. They concentrated on the release date because they needed to sell as many copies quick to make space in the store. But all that doesn't, obviously you got to have a release date so you can promote it, but it's all about what you put out there, and it remains, so if you're confident in the stuff you put out, then that's all that matters. And you just got to hope that, real listeners find it. That's it.
That's real, man. And we're going to wrap this up, but blessings to you too. Peace and blessings, as you guys would say.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been great, and I'm glad we've been friends through all of this, and we've stayed in contact, and hopefully we'll get back to doing some shows together eventually with COVID. I'm excited to hear more come out of you guys, and hip hop thanks you for this, really does, because we need more people like you guys doing what you do, and future looks good. So I want to thank you guys for coming through, as always. Well, I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Sooner than later, man. It was an honor, man. This interview was epic, man.
Yeah, it's great. Always great talking to you guys. So we'll tell you we're going to talk soon. So thanks for coming through, and hopefully we'll post this up ASAP.
Yes, sir. All right.
All right, man.
All right, y'all. Peace.